Hey, everybody, welcome back to the quest for the bestest. That's right. This week we're talking about 2009's Catherine Bigelow movie, The Hurt Locker. Takes place in a desert country known as Iraq or Iraq, if you're more American inclined to speak things incorrectly. We got a lot to say about it. We're going to place it somewhere, and then we're going to pick our next movie at the end of the episode. So make sure you stick around to find out what we're watching next week. But first, we got to review. What did we talk about last week? Where did it end up? Well,
last time on.
yeah, I've got those answers for you. Last week, we talked about The French Connection from 1971. That's right. That's right. And it ended up at the number 4th place, below The Godfather Part 2 and above Rain Man. So this week, we've advanced to the 21st century for the second time. Parasite was the only other 21st century movie that we've reviewed so far. But today, we're talking about 2009's The Hurt Locker. Take it away, boys.
Okay, boys.
I'd seen this movie before.
So
for the first time.
So had I.
I was familiar with it.
Yes.
I did not remember it nearly as well as I thought I did, though.
Same here, actually.
The feel of this movie. Because this movie feels really gross. And I think that's why
it
it's so
feels,
excellent.
and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I
Yes.
Watched this movie for the first time in my introduction to film history with Dr. Wheeler Winston Dixon, my film professor from last year.
Shout out.
Shout out to
Name drop.
Winston Dixon, who does not need my shout out. But he talked a lot about during the film about the production of the film. So I am pretty familiar with the film's production history. Might not remember a lot of it exactly because I might have had my brain partially turned off because I was in class, as you do. But the film production history is the reason why this film has such a unique vibe to it in almost every aspect. And I'll bring those up as we sort of go through.
Some might say this film is a vibe check.
Well,
not me.
Some might say that. I think that's what Catherine Bigelow said at the award acceptance speech.
Well, actually, the awards that it did win.
Oh,
I have my notes. There, see? Notes. There's a reason to have notes sometimes. This movie won Best Picture, clearly, alongside Best Director, Film Editing, Sound Editing, Original Screenplay, and Sound Mixing.
Gosh darn.
That's a lot of the big ones.
Those are the big ones, yeah.
It was also nominated for Best Actor in Jeremy Renner, Cinematography, and Score.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay.
That's the nominees and winnings.
Can I begin by saying this movie is astounding?
Yeah.
Sure. You may say that.
I will follow that up by saying I enjoyed it a lot more the second time.
Me too.
Likewise.
Maybe it's a partially a factor of age because I saw this a couple of years ago. But it's more like, hey, it's a war movie. Oh, that's so cool. And I think I probably approached it with a different lens. But I think here's my anecdote. I had just worked out and I sat down to watch the movie, and I was eating dinner at the same time. That's the point. And I found for the first 10 to 15 minutes of the film, I hadn't even touched my dinner because I couldn't look away from the film. It is so tense. It's like walking around with that pit in your stomach for its 2 hour and 10 minute runtime. It's a difficult film to eat during for many reasons. We'll get to the one scene that almost made me vomit, which is incredible. But I think that this movie is so palpably tense. It commands your eye and your mind in a way that I don't think very other films do. And as someone who does not like war films, especially as a genre, I think this film is uniquely compelling and horrifying.
I'd like to say that spinning off of that, where you're saying that the film is uniquely tense and it kept your attention the entire time. I think that is because one of this film's strongest suits is building a scenario, a uniquely memorable scenario based around sort of one concept and stretching it out to its most tense. And that means that every scene in this film feels super impactful and super memorable in a way that a lot of movies feel like they're telling one long continuous thing. This is a series of episodes in these characters' lives that are each in themselves a contained story, then with a few through lines with the characters' personalities and relationships. But I think that was one of the things I realized through this movie is that a lot of it is super, super memorable in a way that a lot of movies aren't.
I think that you talk about the sense, the vibe, the pulpability of the film, the tension that's in it, and I think all of that comes from how it's shot. I think this film is I'm actually surprised to hear it didn't win cinematography because just the way that everything was put together, the style. This film is really stylistic. Maybe you wouldn't doesn't have a lot of color. It's very muted in that, but that camera that's super shaky, it's moving around, it's very active, it's like a character in and of itself. It moves so that you notice things as characters notice them. And I think it really works to just like build the dramatic irony of what's happening in the scene. You know, you see something as the characters are noticing it, but maybe the camera shows you a little bit more, but it's also happening in real time, so you're gaining information maybe seconds before characters are figuring out. And so like you're going through maybe some of the same processes that you could imagine the characters on screen are. And I think it really, really works to build everything. The film has got incredible fundamentals, I think.
I do need to give you some information on that, because that is the first thing that I know about this film's production history, is that the cinematography, all of the people who were handling the cameras and were shooting the film are people who actually shot war film. They were experienced people shooting war. They weren't professional Hollywood cinematographers. And the directors told them, okay, you know your job. You have done this sort of scenario before. Where do you think would be the best place to be to shoot from what angle? They had a lot of people filming it from all angles at the same time. And that is why I think the editing in this movie especially ties into what you were saying, taking all these disparaging people who were shooting this with shaky cam from strange angles, around corners, doing weird close-ups, all that kind of stuff, and making it together into a coherent story. It's super impressive.
Because of that, it feels like you're watching a work of nonfiction.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I guess not as much along the lines of the physical production of this, but more of the feel that you get from it.
Sure.
I think Abram sort of touched on this when he first started speaking as well, that you know, I also am not a big fan of war films. There's a few in notable ones like Saving Private Ryan or what have you that stick out as like the greats. But overall, I feel that all of them glorify war a bit too much. They Hollywood, you know, they put the Hollywood shine on it, and I feel like if you look at this film a certain way, it certainly is that, you know, Jeremy Renner, he's this rock star rebel guy. He's reckless, but he knows what he's doing, and he's the best at what he does. He's diffused 823 bombs, and he listens to heavy metal music and punches people in the stomach or whatever. But I think once it gets later in the film, during a particular scene, I'm sure we'll talk about, once you read into why he behaves that way and why he talks to others the way that he does, then I think it's very easy to understand like the great thematic elements of this movie, which is, as it sort of heavy-handedly gives you at the very opening, war is a drug. I mean, those are the words that linger on screen from the rest of the quote. And I feel like it executes on that theme very well. And I think that, alongside like what Tucker was talking about, like with the episodic sort of experiences of the trio, of the bomb squad trio, then I think that overall is really what makes me like this film.
Yeah.
I think it's great because it doesn't feel particularly cinematic, and I think the camera work shows that a lot. But it really is interested in showing you starkly what's happening and showing it to you in a way that services its theme but doesn't feel like it's telling you a film narrative. There's a lot of things that could have been hit home harder in a film with a little bit less discipline, probably would have. Like when they've got the Iraqi and they're like, he's got a survivable injury, and the guy's like, he's not going to make it. They just play that as what it is. He said, no, fuck him, we're going to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And the film rolls through that moment. I think it's really good at just keeping you moving and forcing you to never lose that pit in your stomach feeling, never getting so in its own way that you lose the fact that we're just here in Iraq and these guys want to go home, but Jeremy Renner doesn't. So what do we make of that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the film is so successful, I think.
I think for me, as someone, as you said, Abram and Tanner, like not necessarily particularly connecting to war films as a genre, I certainly fall into that camp as well. The reason I found this film super compelling, and I sort of was realizing this as I was noticing the episodic nature, is that this is from the perspective of something more specific. The idea of a bomb defusal squad. You get a small cast of characters that are highly connected and have to communicate, and it's not just boots on the ground soldier guy fighting in a war. This is something much more specific. You get a lot more downtime because they have the opportunity to go back to their rooms and have that sort of story. They're not always in the field. And I found that to be the most compelling aspect of this movie, because I didn't know a lot about, I mean, I'd seen this movie before, but I didn't know a lot about bomb defusal. I didn't know a lot about what it was like being in Iraq as a soldier. And they were able to highlight their personal lives alongside them working in the field together. And I mean, it's just really cool to see the inner workings of their personalities conflicting with how they work together on the field.
I thought that it worked for me to have that, but the film didn't. It was in its worst when it attempted to have a slower, more reflective moment. The style, I don't think works to have Jeremy Renner like actually showing his thoughts and thinking about what's going through and why he's there, and allowing that to be communicated to the audience in a non-tense way. The only way that, because of the way it's shot, the shaky cam and the quick zooms, I don't really feel like they work at the base. They really, it doesn't feel like you're more subdued and bored. It just feels like, oh, we're still tense because we're still here in Iraq. But that the style doesn't, it just, for the slow moments, which I feel like are pretty necessary in order for me to like fully grasp what was going on in the thematic material and like the message of the movie, it needs those slower moments. And yet, because of the style, it didn't exactly play out for me how I maybe would have liked to have seen it.
Yeah. I think going along the lines of like some things that were sort of out of step with the style of the film. My least favorite part of the film, and I feel like it doesn't really work at all, is when Jeremy Renner sort of goes out on his own into the city surrounding the base, and also a little bit later after the oil truck explosion, when they have to go and save Owen, the sort of the third character that's not Jeremy Renner or Anthony Mackie.
Yeah.
I feel like those feel a bit more basic, color by numbers war movie. The part in particular where he sneaks out of the base feels like an episode of Jack Ryan just inserted in the middle of this film.
Sure, yeah.
And sort of the same thing when they have to go after Owen as well. But yeah, I just felt that those didn't work at all. They didn't mesh with the theme of Jeremy Renner does this stuff because he's addicted to it. It's so, because when he goes out into the city, it's to sort of avenge this boy Beckham, and that sort of emotional tie that he had didn't work with the rest of the war is the drug theme.
I actually think that sequence is fairly necessary, because the way I read it is that he's jumpy, he's free. That's the one scene in the movie, even more than after the oil tanker, where you see he doesn't know what to do when he's in the house and he's talking to the professor, and then the woman comes in. He doesn't know what to do. He fucks up. The guy drives away. It's this weird, jumpy, in your stomach aspect of the film, and it did feel a little bit Jason Bourne to me when I was watching it. But I think the fact that it does feel out of place is what helps further his character and this feeling that he wants his family life. There's that scene when he's standing and he's trying to get on his sat phone, and his wife picks up and he can't talk to her. There's this undercurrent. Yes, I think in the most reductive sense, the film is about the war being the drug, but it's also about the fact that he doesn't want it to be. I really think that he doesn't want it to be. And his arc with Beckham illustrates that, and it comes to a head when he leaves the base and when he goes back home and can't stay home.
Yeah.
And that really patronizing scene when he's talking to his wife, and then she's like, okay, can you cut the carrots for me now? It's like you realize there's more than just, fuck yeah, I love being in the suit. And I think that sequence is integral when he leaves the base to that.
I felt like that sort of idea was more well executed when he went back home to America. In particular, I really like when you cut immediately from the military base in Iraq to the grocery store, but the color palette and the graininess stays the same, and you're like, oh, this doesn't work at all. And that puts you in the mind space of his character, that he's out of his element. I thought that keeping that the same and jumping right to like the fluorescent lights and like the freezer section of some grocery store in middle America worked very well to displace you from and make you feel his displacement.
I do want to say something to the concept of those scenes feeling out of place, is that this film is so tonally consistent in everything that it does. You get into this mindset that, okay, almost every shot is going to be shaky cam. Okay, everything's going to be kind of colorless and drab because they're in a place that is sort of barren, and they're going to be out doing things. They're going to be fighting. They're going to be having these tense moments. That when it does switch on its head, it can feel pretty jarring, like you said in the scene where he leaves the camp. But I also think that, as you're saying, it works to its benefit when he ends up in the back at home in the grocery store, because you go straight from shaky war cam, Owen got his leg hurt and he's cursing Jeremy Renner out, and go straight to the grocery store where the camera is static. There's no movement. Jeremy Renner is low to the ground, and Jeremy Renner is looking at that long line of cereal boxes. That is a great shot. I love that shot because it's so antithetical to everything else that happened. It is framed properly. The camera is not moving, and the characters having an internal conflict as opposed to an external conflict with the rest of the world. And I don't know, it's just such a cool juxtaposition to me. And one of the reasons why I love the ending of this film so much, because it's the proving of that moment that war is a drug that he wants to stay home with his family because he loves his son and he wants to be able to fit back into that, but he can't. Like he's so stuck on the idea of going back to war and doing this thing that he really enjoys, and then that day counter resets. And is how many days left in his I don't know the word. I'm not a war man.
Rotation. It's like a year.
Yes, exactly. And that is so cool. That's so powerful. It's no words. It's like, bam, this is how many days he has left. And it's just like, it hits you in that moment that it's a cycle. He's going right back to square zero.
It gives you the idea that, he's justifying that to himself a lot, like most addicts do. That's like, okay, I'm just going one more tour is all I need, and that'll get it out of my system. Yeah.
What other thoughts we got?
Well, I think that this movie really does not make me feel super good about being an American. I watched some Czech New Wave movies that were set in World War II, where about like the resistance in the Czech Republic fighting against the Nazis, and this movie felt like exactly the opposite perspective. I really did not get you talked about like Hollywoodizing and glorifying the war. I felt like this movie just totally it and maybe that's a good thing. It made me feel like the characters we were watching weren't necessarily the good guys. They weren't fighting for what was right. They weren't fighting for, defusing the bombs is generally a just and noble thing to do. But it was like with the doctor, the colonel or whatever, and he's like greeting the people and he's pointing he's like, he's trying to be friendly, and then like it doesn't work. And so he's just greeting them at the end of the rifle. And it just it makes me feel pretty bad about being from America and what our country does overseas, especially in the Middle East. And so I think that is to the credit of the movie. I think that's good.
Yeah. I think there definitely is some like American military excellence things about the film that
they're great at bomb defusing. Like he's never gonna mess up.
And there definitely is some of the elements. I think we need to acknowledge that obviously like the Iraqi characters aren't really characters, but at the same time, I feel like it does a solid job of like not glorifying the characters too much. Like there's scenes of them, they're just drunk idiots who punch each other for fun. They're not like they aren't patriotized too much, I feel, for what they're doing, even though like the bomb defusal is like a noble cause in most cases.
I mean, I think it's complicated. I didn't view this as anti-war inherently. I think this film does a nice job showing both, and I think it makes these characters look really, and I think justifiably so, very heroic. Especially during the sniper sequence, which I think is an absolutely incredible sequence.
Yeah.
In what it does implicitly for the relationship between Jeremy Renner and Owen. I don't even know his actor's name, unfortunately.
I've got it right here.
But when
Brian Garrity.
When Brian Garrity is like, I just can't fucking do it. He just can't do it. He can't get the blood off of the 50 cal rounds. And Jeremy Renner is talking to him. And you see there's this interesting phenomenon for a lot of people who have anxiety. And then you extrapolate it out to this scale where people feel more calm in these moments of high tension. And when you see Jeremy Renner kick in and control that situation, I think that there is a really important heroism that is illustrated in the film that feels genuine, opposed to a sort of Hollywoodized heroism that feels fake.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think that this film does a really nice job illustrating the weird contradictions and dichotomies of being an American soldier at war, and showed me part of why I respect these men so much, even if there's really icky aspects of what they're doing.
Mhm.
Watching their interactions, I think, felt really earned and felt, I think, respectful in how it showed the good of our service against the bad and where blame should and shouldn't be placed. I think it's a really more nuanced approach to war and left me feeling multiple ways about the film.
Okay, yeah. Maybe it was the fake Hollywood heroism that I didn't feel as much. That what you pointed out.
Yeah, well, I think that I'm gonna I think we're gonna be sort of wrapping this up. We got to get to the last couple segments. The last thing I want to talk about, this is just a one-off deal, is, you know me, I am not a fan of slow-mo, but
Oh.
this movie has got some tasteful slow-mo.
It's proper
and
slow-mo.
that gets
It's
me
proper.
going. It's so good, man. Those the shock waves hitting the dirt and having it go up, and the
When
slow-mo. Yeah.
when the first bomb goes off and like the rust like flies off the car. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, another one when they're landing that last shot in the sniper battle, and you don't even see the bullet or the gunfire or anything. All you see is the casing of the bullet hit the ground in
Mhm.
slow mo, and I'm just like, oh yeah, because you know what's happening, and they just have this really unique moment to flip that kind of scenario on its head, because you're used to just having the shot happen and their shot reverse shot of the tension.
Yeah.
By the way, this might be one of the longest shot reverse shots in history with that sniper battle. That's cool. But just the fact that they were able to flip that scenario you've seen in war movies of tense moment, there are two guys shooting at each other, but take it and put it through a new lens with just the casing hitting the ground. That's such a cool filmmaking moment
Yeah.
of playing with expectations.
I have
But-
two quick. Oh, okay. Sorry.
yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that was it. I was going to move
Okay.
on, but
I have two quick notes about the sniper scene just because I want to bring them up. I talked about this when we were watching. I felt it was unrealistic that Anthony Mackie, I think Sanborn was his character's name.
yeah.
He's trained in intelligence. He's a squad leader and also a trained sniper, apparently. I felt that was a little unrealistic. I'm not familiar with like military training and how many things you can specialize in, but I felt like that was a little unrealistic that he's just like, "Oh, of course, I'll take the sniper and shoot, 500 yards away or whatever." Second thing, surprise Ray Fiennes in this movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
And Evangeline Lilly and Guy Pearce.
yes.
I love Guy Pearce's appearance in this film.
I did want to say, related to Ray Fiennes' character, I like the inclusion of like the mercenaries in this. I feel like that's not something you see a lot in popular war films, especially modern war films. But I really like the inclusion of this, which is a very real thing in the war in the Middle East, the private mercenaries squads, and I like the inclusion of that. It really builds out the world and makes it feel more lived in and realistic.
Sure.
Can we mention before we wrap up the body bomb sequence?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I
yeah.
knew you wanted to talk about it earlier, so
Yeah.
I was going to hit on it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. I Tucker will sometimes eat food and open his mouth, and I see the chew food in his mouth when we record, and it makes me almost vomit. This sequence is really raw. A lot of film gore or what have you. I have seen the Raid films, and none of like that shit like that doesn't bother me. But this was such a visceral moment that I think it's really important to the film, and I think it's really interesting how they handled the overexposure of the gore with it still feeling tasteful and important to the film. I didn't feel like it took me out. It just felt fucking disgusting.
Yeah. To clarify, you're talking about when they find the dead body in the warehouse, not when there's the man strapped with the bombs.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
also a very powerful scene. The failed defusal.
Yeah.
I mean, that scene is incredible. I love that scene. Not for what it is, but for how it was made and how the
Yeah.
character's done. But I think that
Yeah.
is kind of our thoughts on the Hurt Locker. I hope you all know where you want to put this.
I
Yeah.
do.
I think I do. I think I know where I want to put it. So let's start at
side.
as how it normally goes. Is it above number 6, Out of Africa? Raise your hand if it is.
Yes.
Okay, put your hands down. Next one, we're rapid fire. Is it above number 5, Rain Man? All right,
Yes.
moving up. Is it above number 4, The French Connection?
Oh, here we go. Okay.
So we're getting up there.
Unanimous so far. Unanimous so far.
Is it above number 3, The Godfather Part 2?
Oh,
Whoa!
a tie. Oh boy, what do we do in that? What do we do if there's a tie?
We
Well,
debate.
I don't know.
deliberate.
How
Okay.
about here's what
I do have a justification for this.
Sure.
I felt
Is that your case?
just basically, another critique that I have of the film is that I felt like the writing is a little on the nose. I mean, there's some lines at the beginning where Sanborn literally says he's reckless. He's a rogue. He does what he wants or whatever. I felt like that was the character writing was a little on the nose, and it improves over the course of the film. But I felt like Godfather Part 2 character writing was just stellar all the way through.
I don't like Godfather Part 2 as much.
What I'll say is I'm big on feel. I like the way a film captivates me, and I think few films we've watched are more captivating than this. And I like that it works on multiple levels. I think there's a lot of really subtle moments we didn't get to touch on. The subtleism, to use a backlog banter trademark phrase, is incredible. There's a great, like when they've got the 2 juice pouches left, and Jeremy Renner looks at it, says no, gives it to Sanborn, and then we see Owen drink an entire one himself. There's a lot of really interesting small moments that are just as compelling and just as rich with subtext as the larger sequences. I think it's a film that is both heavy-handed and light when it needs to be. I think that it captivates in a way that many films don't, and I really think that it is the pinnacle of its genre. I think that this film is incredible.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. As someone who's not particularly into these kind of films, I was very much not turned on. That's the word that went through my head, but I was very, I'll just go for it. I was turned on, and not a sexual way, by the fact that this movie was so raw in its interpretation of these characters that were very human and relatable, but also, had this sort of larger than life quest to go on, quest for the bestest, if you will.
I think impressed might be a better word to use there.
Sure. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Let's go with impressed. But you were saying, Tanner, the dialogue that you felt was sort of on the nose. I disagree, because I think this film's one of its strongest suit is how it highlights masculinity through its dialogue, and how it sort of deconstructs that and shows that it can be negative. It can be overly influential to thought processes. And that sort of on the nose dialogue might just be those guys being like, oh, hey, I have to fit into a role. I have to be the lead. Sanborn has to be the leader. So he feels like he has to say these things that might just sound cliche, but I don't know.
You also have to look at what the film says without saying it. These guys are scared, and the film communicates that to you without them saying, hey, man, I'm freaking out. There's some sequences where they do, but again, it returns this idea of what the film says and doesn't say, but communicates however it does.
Timo, you can give a justification, but I'm going to show my hand here through my own introspection and the pitches of these two, Abram and Tucker. I think I'm going to concede. I'm gonna go okay with this above Godfather Part 2.
Oh yeah, man.
Well, there you go.
Well,
so
now, do we got one more?
No.
Well,
not
we
me.
can't-
I'm not gonna go one more.
I would have.
you would have put it above Parasite.
Yes.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
For
Well, we're not going to
let the
go. There's
record
enough time
show.
for that, but
Yeah.
Part of the film just kind of doesn't sit super well with me. That's part
fair.
of it. It's just like I'm not super. Yeah, I just the story is I don't know, feels gross and icky to me. Maybe it's just because of the content and how it like is portrayed that it makes me feel that way. But yeah, I actually have thought about it a lot. I've had a lot of, me laying in bed late at night thinking about like how I'm gonna, or I guess how I'm gonna like talk about it, because I kind of don't really know how to fully express the exact nuances of how I feel about it, in that it's a war movie, and it's not a recent war movie. It's the recentness of the war movie that really grips me and makes me question some of it, because I personally don't have like Apocalypse Now. I don't have a lot of connection and cultural context and being around then. I don't have a lot for 1917. It's like World War I. That's 100 years ago over, so having it been in Iraq, something that's still going on today that I feel personally about. I have opinions about Iraq, about being in the Middle East, that it's just that just kind of doesn't
I mean, I'm sure the same went for people who watched Apocalypse Now back in the day.
Looking
back, the Vietnamese people weren't portrayed well in that film.
Mhm,
Yeah.
They were not. So, well, we're a little short on time. So let's
Yes.
take a quick peek at the graph at our.
Oh,
So,
look. Oh, there it goes.
Ooh.
Oh,
Whoa, whoa,
whoa. It's
A
on there
new-
now.
A new number 3.
bow! Top 3.
Top 3. That's
I'm
pretty.
very happy with this placement.
That's pretty big news. So now for the moment you've all been waiting for. This has been very interesting discussion. This has been great.
Great
discussion.
episode, guys. Great
Yeah.
episode.
We must decide now
Out of
on
85 films.
out of 85 films. We must
Boy, I'm
decide
excited. I'm excited again.
where it goes. Hold on.
I'm getting giddy.
Give me.
Come on. Give me one of the ones I really want. Come on, guys. Come on.
I'm having some computer issues, so I think
Oh,
we will possibly be back. Nope.
What?
We are good. We are good to go.
Oh,
No
okay,
problem.
Oh, gosh.
oh.
We're in this. We're in
It's
this.
like the
This is the
tension of
most
the Hurt Locker.
This is the most suspenseful this spin has ever been.
And
Deal
there
number?
it goes. It's spinning.
Oh, dear
Whoa.
Lord.
Oh my God.
The zoom counter
We
is
got
clicking down at the top.
Oh, dear
got-
God.
a large number. The number is the big 66.
66.
Okay.
Oh, we're going
Oh.
back in time.
All right.
Execute Order 66.
God damn it.
For one of the best Star Wars films.
This is a movie. Let's see. What year is this? 1947. Elia
Oh.
Kazan. This is a Kazan, boys. We're going for some Elia Kazan. Starring Gregory Peck.
Oh, heard of him.
Gentleman's Agreement.
Gentleman's
Oh.
Agreement.
Interesting.
Don't know anything about it. I can guarantee none of us have seen it. If I
I have
know.
not
have
seen it.
Yeah, but
There we go.
I'm excited for
Yeah.
a random old one none of us have seen. This is gonna be a good time.
I feel like
It's
so-
going to
I
be
feel
a
like
good
it will
time.
be.
We are expanding our repertoire. We're going to the beginning and we're going to the end. That's what we do here on
On the
Quest for the Bestest.
bestest.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I
Oh,
hope
yeah.
I certainly enjoyed the talk this week, even if I didn't exactly end up where I thought, but it's close. I can't,
It's close.
you know, it's not like I wanted to be at the bottom and you guys wanted it to be at the top. So
Yeah.
I'm happy. Thank you
Happy.
for joining us this week. We'll be back next time for a gentleman's agreement on the quest for the bestest. Catch you then.
Bye.
You go awooga, and he grabs your eyeballs as they're awoogaing, and he
He
fucking
ties them in a knot.
When
Holy shit.
was the last
On
time
that
you
note.
awooga'd?
It's been a while.
Tell you,
Many
I
months
awooga'd
ago.
last
I don't
night.
awooga very much. Shut the
I awooga'd last night, baby.
quiet.
Shut the fuck up.
Quiet.
Tanner, can you hear Tucker having sex?